All right, guys, we will go ahead and get started. So everybody should know these two gentlemen on stage. We have Jim Bitticks, CEO of Dave's Hot Chicken. Clearly, they've set a lot of records, one of the fastest growing restaurant chains at the moment. And then we have Rev Ciancio with Salad House, CMO there. A lot of tactical information and a lot of tactical advice coming from both of them. This is going to be a really good conversation tackling three of the top challenges: labor, margins, and guest retention. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. I started the company focused on these three metrics because we believe the easiest way and the most levered way to make an impact in a restaurant space is to use these efficiently. So controlling your prime cost, your margins, and then the easiest way to maximize that is through guest retention, because it's such an underutilized way to increase top-line revenue, which then reduces these two costs. You're going to hear from Jim, which is when he told me that, I'm like, you don't have labor challenges? And he's like, no, we don't. So we'll ask him why not and how he overcomes that. So let's get into the prime cost, labor stuff. So Jim, you can go ahead and get started. So how do you guys tackle margins, labor challenge, and we'll start with those two things.
So what I actually said about labor was that Dave's is enjoying that period of time that Starbucks had for a long time, where people would rather work at Starbucks than McDonald's, for example. So it made it a little bit easier, especially in California, where we have the biggest accumulation of restaurants in California, where minimum wage is now like $21 an hour. It's actually changed the game on retention and turnover for all of the California-based franchisees. And since it's an all-franchise brand, obviously, lots of franchisees have different experiences based on what they pay in their different markets. But we do tend to enjoy a bit of popularity when it comes to wanting to work there when we open a new restaurant, compared to 2021, for example, where we were like beating the bushes to get people to come in and apply for a job. There have been a lot more in the last couple of years, for sure, more interest in folks working for us. In terms of answering the question, labor itself is always a challenge, but Dave's is a really profitable or really productive model. We do a lot of focus on productivity measures, like the number of entrees per hour, rather than trying to hit a specific labor percentage. It all comes out the same. I mean, old school operators shoot for sales per labor hour versus a entrees per labor hour metric. We have a conversion, obviously. It's about $96 is our target on sales per labor hour, which is essentially 6.5 entrees per hour, if that makes sense. So as you move from market to market, we do have groups that underperform or overperform against that, but at least that's the baseline. And that tends to be very profitable metric. If you can hit that number, it works really well at a Dave's. On the COGS side, we've done a lot of work over the last 5 or 6 years to try to make sure that the food cost on a per plate or per combo basis was really strong. And we've done a lot of add-on of drinks, for example, as a way to try to balance out the menu and make it more profitable.
Awesome. Let's drill down into some of the metrics that we've seen in this space. So food cost has gone through the roof. Everybody knows that. That's obviously a big, huge challenge right now. Many prices have been adjusted at least a couple of times a year in the last few years. But I think we're about to reach that peak of that, where the consumers are just a lot more cautious of any price increases. So how do you overcome that? And we'll talk about how to solve that challenge without taking price increases. And then labor, the turnover has been crazy. So if you can manage to get your labor and reduce your turnover, is your most efficient way to deal with these challenges on labor. And of course, everybody wants to make more money. Your staff is trying to these guys are walking in and the wigs are throwing everybody off, including myself, but yeah. So anyway, but yeah, just reducing turnover rate in labor in order to maximize the lifetime value of that employee versus the customer. Jim, tell us a little bit more on how did you guys turn into that Starbucks era, and how are you making Dave's cool, and how do you build that environment so that people want to actually work at a restaurant? You've mentioned before that it's challenging.
Sure.
How do you overcome that?
I was going to say the coolness has absolutely nothing to do with me, just so you know, as you can tell by my wig. But no offense. The Dave's whole thing has been that we were sort of cool from the very beginning. One of our founders is this like young social media savant who's he's just cool on his own. He has a lot of confidence in himself, and he'll wear something weird or whatever, but like he'll pull it off, and he's just cool. That's just how he is. And I think that part of the brand mystique, if you want to call it that, comes obviously from him and his personality, and it translates. It's translated really well over time. I think a lot of it has to do with the authenticity of the social media posts. For example, it's just the food. There's not any agency created content. There's not anything sort of contrived or inauthentic about what we post. Even our ads that you'll see on TikTok or wherever, or streaming television, those are all real users who said the things they said or tried the food the way they tried it. None of that is like actors, or it hasn't been paid for. It's been compensated to be used for, but not like asked for, if that makes sense. So I don't have a great answer other than I guess we got lucky, or Armand's really cool. Armand's the founder that I mentioned a second ago. So,
what about culture? Touch base a little bit on that, because you guys are creating that culture. Yeah, there you go. Another one.
So it's interesting because it's an all franchise brand, right? So with an all franchise brand, we've got 85 franchise groups. They're all run by millionaires. They couldn't be franchisees if they didn't have those qualifications. And there's a bit of a challenge as you try to create the brand or recreate the brand 85 different times with 85 different groups. There's sort of a core group of values and goal or statements like purpose, mission, vision, that type of stuff that we created. But all those groups are their own separate individual companies, if that makes sense. And they have their own sort of set of values for their company. And what we've tried to do is make the brand really, I guess, portable in terms of like who we are, what we are. And we've tried to bring, I guess, enculturate or indoctrinate our franchisees into what Dave's is all about, so that they can go and repeat it over and over and match it up to the mothership, if you will, back home. And that was a big focus from the very beginning, and all of those pieces are layered into like our training systems, and authenticity, I'd say, is probably the core of the brand and who and what we are. We try to stay very authentic to that from the very beginning.
I was going to say, Salad House is not as cool as Dave's, although we have some locations that are near each other. One of the things that we do that I helped implement is that when we onboard a new franchisee, they go through a brand introduction 3 times. So Discovery Day, there's a brand introduction, and then there's the Meet the CMO Day, and so we have a call, and then there's a kickoff for new stores. So they get a brand immersion 3 times before like real work starts.
Similar, Discovery Day, and then there's a new franchisee orientation when you bring folks in, and each group presents to them. It's a sort of a standard deck. There's a lot of some of the standard, pieces of collateral that we want people to see, some video stuff and whatever. Everybody goes through that. And then when they go through the training, the franchise owners have to go through training also. It's a 2-week process, and we have a training center in Southern California they go through, as well as all of the operations people to open their first restaurants. So there's some of that as well for us to try to get that passed through.
And by the way, like, you're not the only ones. Like, we're a tech company and we deal with the same challenges, right? So from our side, I've been going through a lot of training in the last probably 4-6 weeks. And one thing that stood out is your values should not be something that you aspire to be. They should be what got you there. So to us, that was really a big moment. And we had gotten to our values because of that. But we didn't know that's how we had arrived to that value statement, to our values. So for example, for us, our values are reliability. The way that we've gotten to where we are today at the revenue employee size scale was because we were always reliable. Our customers could count on us. Product knowledge is our second value. We know our products in and out, and we can speak to it. And then our process knowledge is a third value that we do the same thing and we do it over and over again, and we train everybody on that. As you continue to scale, it becomes more and more difficult to get everybody on the same page. Back to the training. Like we've doubled, tripled down on training. We do video trainings, we do self-paced trainings, we do huddle calls every day. And then our last thing is autonomy. We make simple decisions on behalf of our clients so that they don't have to make those decisions. So we don't bother them. So those are the 4 values that has gotten us to where we are today. And I encourage you to think about that. How did you grow and how did you become a 350 unit brand in 5 years? And then use those as your values. There should not be aspirational where you're trying to get there. That's what got you there.
Yeah, when we built, we did something similar when I first joined the team, and we defined what our mission was, our vision, our purpose, and then when we hit on our core values, we did a whole study of like lots of different companies, and pulled all of those things together and sort of said, okay, those aren't very authentic. These sound pretty good. These sound more like they were written by an agency so that it would sound really good. And we tried to make ours be something that was very true to the brand. We did a whole internal project where we whiteboarded like what are the keywords that you think of when you think of Dave's and what the brand's supposed to be about. And then we sort of boiled those down into 8 aspirations, I guess. Then we boiled those down to 5. And then we turned those 5 into little mini snippets. And so ours is build something phenomenal, remember how we got here, include and respect our partners, which speaks to like the franchising side of it, never give up, and execute, excel, and enjoy. And those 5 are really wrapped around sort of what the brand really is and has been. We created images that go with each one of them, and the one that says "Remember how we got here" is the picture of the guys in the parking lot when they first started the brand, and there's a lot to it. If you were to write those on a whiteboard right now, build something phenomenal, remember how we got here, include and respect our partners, never give up, and execute, and excel, and enjoy. They're an acronym for the word brine. And we brine the chicken, and I think brine is a really boring and terrible word to use. Just so you know. And I called Armand, the guy I mentioned earlier, and I said, hey, I'm going to build the values off of an acronym so they're easy to remember. And I can either use the word brine or I can use the word spice. And I thought spice was the winner. And I could make those things fit in the word spice also. And he goes, bro, I think you should just use brine because that's sort of the secret of the chicken. That's what makes the chicken so good. And I was like, yeah, but brine's a really boring word. Like, that's an old man word. He's like, yeah, but that's sort of like a secret. Like, and that's what I mean, where he just leans into being confident and he's just authentically like real about stuff. And he just really felt like that was the right choice. And I begrudgingly went with brine. I feel like I should have just said spice. Because like when I said that to you guys, like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, yeah, it's spice, it's the spice, you know? And that's how I sort of felt about it. But we landed on brine. And it's easy to remember. I was able to spout it off right here. It's a little bit different than just like 4 key words, you know, like reliability or knowledge or whatever you just said a minute ago. That has a little bit more, it's intended to scale up and down. At the restaurant level, I can speak to team members and managers at this level, but at the franchise owner level, I can also do it, if that makes sense. And so it was sort of done purposely so that it had that ability to port up and down, if that makes sense.
And the last thing is just technology. Like, I obviously own a few technology companies. I don't care about technology myself. Right?
There's not a few companies, guys. Like,
things just happen. You solve problems. You find out that your problem is not unique. You just go right into it. But what I was going to say is the advantage of technology is the benefit that it offers. So we're now doubling down on that. We're focusing on the benefit. I don't care what the tech piece is. What I care about is, will it solve a problem? So you had also mentioned that you use technology to make life easier on the employee stuff. Can you give us a couple of examples? Like, I think you mentioned like the dishwasher example. So,
sure.
Like
automation technology.
Yeah, automation technology. And don't focus on technology. Who cares? It's just a means to an end. Yeah. I tell our customers, I tell our employees that, hey, our technology is a means to an end. It is there to solve a problem. Yeah. What's the problem? Solve the problem. I don't care if it's cool or not. Sure. So give us that example.
Sure. Using like the idea of automation, for example, a lot of people when the minimum wage went up in California about a year and a half ago, Restaurant Business came and did a little snip at one of our locations, and I did a video thing where I said that our goal was to take this minimum wage increase without reducing people's hours, without hurting the employees. Like, we're going to take a little bit of price, and we're going to look at things to try to improve and make the model a little more productive, including kiosks. But our goal is not to replace employees. And the very first snarky comment on the bottom of that YouTube video is like, yeah, a corporate guy doesn't want to reduce hours or whatever. And that was a very, very authentic statement that I made. Like, our goal was not to like displace people and throw people out or anything like that. It was to try to make the job easier and to really make sure franchisees could keep their business as profitable as possible. But the same thing goes for things like automatic dishwashers. Like, automatic dishwashers, everybody's got one at home. Many restaurants have them. You still need a guy who loads the racks and pushes the dishes through. And as we look at ways to automate the restaurant even more, including like we've got 3 locations right now testing fry robots. We call it French Fry Roboto. It's by a company named Atosa, a Chinese company that's been willing to sort of adjust and model out these robot arms that drop the fries. It isn't to replace a person, it's to help the people that are there. Our restaurants that have dishwashers in them, employees like that restaurant better than if they have to bust out all the dishes themselves by hand, if that makes sense. It's not to replace anybody, it's to help the employees that are there and to make the job better. Same thing with the French fry robot, same thing with the kiosks, same thing with any other piece that you can bring in and help automate. I would say, probably when Rev was a kid, not me. They were probably still writing orders on guest checks. I'm too young. But
I live in New Jersey. We still have some of those restaurants. And people think it's cool, and I'm like, I just want my toast.
when I was a little kid, you'd go into a Whataburger, and they were writing things on a grease board, like with a grease pencil. That's how they transferred the order info to the back, and then they rang it up. POS is another example of automation that has made the restaurant easier, better, and faster. So there are no, at least on my side, maybe on the industry side, there are no nefarious intentions behind automation. It's really around trying to make the jobs easier and better. Fast food, quick service restaurant, fast casual jobs are not highly sought after. You don't have people showing up going, you know what I really want to do? I really want to wash dishes for the next 2 years while I go to college or whatever. And so how do you make those jobs easier, better for the employees? And I think automation is one of those tools. If you think about it that way, it's much better. It's just like using a vacuum cleaner at home. When Rev was a kid, they used to sweep up all the stuff, and now you've got vacuum cleaners.
I'm not the one with the gray afro.
Or Roombas. I was just.
At the burger shop I own in New York City, we open the doors with kiosks. Yeah. And the way the service works is you walk in the door, it's a quick service hamburger joint. We have somebody greet you at the door as if you're going into like a fine dining restaurant. Hey, welcome to Handcraft Burgers and Brew. My name's Anna. Have you been here before? No, amazing, cool. Let me walk you over to the kiosk. Here's our most popular burger. People like our loaded tater tots. And then it's like you get a concierge right to the kiosk. And then that person, that's all they do. They just float people to the kiosks, and if the place is too busy or not busy, they will help the tables with busing or whatever. But anyway, my point is we have 99% capture rate on our customers' data because they have to order through the kiosk or online. And the reason I bring this up is if you go read our reviews on Google, we have a 4.7, couple thousand reviews or whatever. Like every other one is the service here is amazing because we've reallocated that labor to then do more table touching and talk to the guests than it is like, what else can I get you? What else do you want? Anything else? Anything else? And I think like if that, we probably all have been to a million fast food restaurants where you walk up and you're like, the person just looks at you and goes, anything else?
Yeah.
Is that it? Is that it? Are you done? And like, how does that make you feel good? Whereas this case, like that person comes over and is like, are you happy? Do you need any sauce? Like, can I get you some more napkins? And like, people love it. Yeah. And so it was a reallocation of labor, and our staff likes it because they're not just doing this very tedious thing where it's like, boop, boop. Did you want the nuggets? Boop. Yeah. So.
And surprisingly, people spend more on kiosks. You guys probably have that experience also, but we're seeing that industry-wide, that kiosk average check is higher. And it's not the suggestive sell that the kiosk guys want to convince you, like, oh, it's because it pops up at the end. We think it's because they have more dwell time.
Yep.
We think it's the...
There's nobody standing behind them, but like...
And they're not rushing.
Yeah,
Like,
there's no
it's like,
rushing.
hey, go, go, go. I got to go to the next
And the
check.
lack of judgment.
Yes.
When you order a large top-loaded Oreo shake and you go, you know what I mean? There's nobody going like, are you sure?
You sure you want that? Yeah.
Yeah, you sure you don't want to just go with a small? Or maybe a Diet Coke instead? Or, to your point about the integration of the kiosk into the service model, so that's really interesting. I had this moment about 2 years ago. I was with my right-hand guy, and he wanted lunch. He loves Burger King. There was a Burger King and a Raising Cane's right next to each other, and I really like Raising Cane's. So I was like, obviously Raising Cane's. Like, no, let's do Burger King. We walk into Burger King, and there are no registers anymore. It's 2 kiosks on the counter facing the customer, facing the guest. And I was wondering if they had ices. Burger King just launched this cotton candy flavored icy. So good. Okay. And I had tasted it. They had it testing somewhere. I tasted it. I was like looking to see if they had the icy machines. And I was trying to find an employee, like, do you guys have ices? Like, do you have the icy machine here? And they were like way back there, like, you know, and they're just sort of like looking, and the kiosks were so high. And I just was like, this is terrible. This is like the worst thing possible. This is not good for Burger King. It might be good for them in the short term. It is not good for them in the long term. And you can call the Burger King guys and let them know I said that, because I sat there and I waited for somebody to come up to ask if they have ices. I walked away and I had this epiphany moment where I said, oh, this is what's going to happen in all the fast foods. And this is what's going to make fast casual better and stronger if we don't do this. And so we went back and working with our CFO, who's the bald guy in the back of the room here, and our IT guy.
Another bald guy. Just
FYI.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bald guys.
We have some spare wigs. Like if you want in,
you're not wrong. I have extra wigs. James, yes, we have wigs for you guys if you want. Yeah, bald is beautiful. Said from a guy with a toupee. I had this moment where I realized when Rev was a kid, ATMs didn't exist. You had to go into the bank and wait. And then they got ATMs, and there was this attitudinal thing about, well, F that. I'm not going to go to a machine so they don't have to staff the teller. And then now, people prefer tellers. They don't want to go in. There's been a total shift. Looks good, James.
Yeah, it looks great.
Everybody take
Boom.
a look at that guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's how he used to look.
That's how it's done.
Yeah, that's how he used to look 20 years ago. Anyway, so I had this whole thing about like, oh, ATMs are now the thing, just like at Target, where they'll have registers open, but people are waiting to do self-checkout. I know for me it's because I'm going to shoplift some of the stuff that I have. But a lot of people don't want to interact with somebody, if that makes sense. And so this idea of kiosks becomes a real thing that's really going to be a thing. And so what we went back and did is we designed what we call the Daves of the Future, where we've integrated the kiosks into the front line rather than station them in some faraway island or outpost. Like in a McDonald's, it's in the middle of the dining room far away, or in some other brands, you'll see them way out in the queuing line. And what we've done is we've actually pulled the counter, made the counter sort of like a floating counter, and then put 2 kiosks on the sides of the counters. This is for new restaurants going forward. Retrofits are going to be however we can fit it in and squeeze it in, but the future image of a Dave's. And then what that does is it creates the 2 POS terminals are actually adjacent to the 2 kiosks. And so if a guest has a question, I can still say, how can I help you?
Do you have ices?
Yeah, whatever. Do you have ices? Yes. Specifically the cotton candy icy. So it's a good point about sort of integrating the automated pieces into the service model so it doesn't reduce service. It actually improves or potentially makes it a better experience for the guest that wants to use a kiosk.
From outside looking in, it sounds like they said make it less sucky to work in a restaurant. I don't want to flip burgers. I don't want to flip fries. And give them a rewarding position like, I don't know, maybe we'll call them dream weavers, steal from memories of hospitality, but make it not mundane, boring, so that they're just sitting, pushing buttons. They're actually talking to people, interacting, etc. So that's how you maximize labor, and that's how you make a difference. That's how you make it a little bit cooler to work at Dave's versus McDonald's, or go to Starbucks versus the other coffee shop down the street where It's just boring. And then also, like, again, maximizing technology, like a lot of these phone orders, like we're now doubling down on that, because now today you can actually have a voice AI do end to end. Typically, a lot of companies still haven't mastered that, but you would call in, put in an order, and then it would text you a link to pay for it. It's like, well, that defeated the whole purpose. It's like, why did I do that? I'm driving, I needed to call somebody, but now you can actually process payments using AI that is PCI compliant. So now you've solved the problem end to end, and that makes it less complicated for your users and your guests and your employees. So I'm driving, I can call in, I can take that order, I can process the payment, boom, go pick it up, and the employee doesn't have to answer the phone. They can focus on the guests within the four walls. So again, just figure out the problem you're solving for and go after the solution that solves that problem end to end, not just kind of halfway through and be like, oh, well, you still have to click on a text and do da, 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 da.
I'm going to throw this out there before we segue. I think one of the best things you can do with your labor is say thank you, and have everybody say thank you to each other. At the burger shop, at least, we have a culture that if you walk through the kitchen, we do the kitchen five.
Yeah.
Say hit the elbow. Like, hey, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like anytime anybody passes through the kitchen, you just hear the kitchen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're always doing bumps. Like when you leave for the day, everybody says thank you. Like we just show appreciation to each other. And sorry?
1,000%.
Yeah, 1,000%. And then that also then comes to the guests. So you, at least again at the burger shop, you'll see our team walk through and literally say, hey, thank you for coming. We really appreciate it.
Amazing. So I think we crushed labor. So again, like back to the call example, we've seen this, obviously we also on the telecom side, and we see missed calls. And every missed call is a missed opportunity. So maximize on that stuff because it drives revenue. Labor, COGS, all of that stuff is a percentage of your top line. So the more you drive in top line, the less challenging, I guess, those two will become, right? Food costs, same thing with labor costs, because then if you're doing $3 million a year versus $1 million a year, huge difference, right? You have more money to spend, so your employees don't have to work 2-3 jobs just to make a living. You can actually afford to pay them more, or they're getting more tips, etc. So don't always just think, how do I save the most amount of money? How do I use revenue to solve those problems? Because at $3 million a year, you could pay people $20 an hour and not really struggle. But at $1 million, can't do it. So you're gonna have to shut down, go home. What do you think?
I mean, very, very possible for sure.
Challenge it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's, we have a philosophy of we charge the right price for the food. We don't try to keep it too inexpensive, because what ends up happening is you end up cutting a lot of corners and trying to manage things down. You end up managing things down. You end up managing the quality down, and you know your teams, when you leave them shorthanded, for example, they'll do things like cook up a lot of extra chicken so that they can get through the rush. And so by the end of the busy period, you're serving old chicken or cold chicken. And so we put a lot of emphasis on making it so that it's a healthy enough margin that you can support it properly, if that makes sense. I grew up in the restaurants. I started when I was 15 years old, and I know what it's like when you're keeping it so tight that your employees cheat or cut corners. I used to work the graveyard shift at Jack in the Box, and this kid named David, I don't remember his last name, otherwise I'd tell you and shame him right now, but he used to come in at 11 o'clock, and by 11:30 we were cooking 100 to 200 tacos, Jack in the Box tacos, for the 1:30 bar trade, and they're good for 5 minutes, and so that's the whole time is 5 minutes, and we'd still be serving those at 2:15. But they're probably the ones that got made at midnight, so they're only 2 hours old. But it was one of those things that's what you do. It's just the two of us, and we had to get through this massive rush, and you'd start doing all these things early to get through it. So there's a balancing act there for sure.
Agreed. So just kind of, I find this really fascinating because at the center of everything, don't forget you're running a business. You got to drive margins. So if you just control these around it, restaurants, any business actually, it's simple, it's not always easy, but you got to figure out what that highest leverage input versus output is. So look at that holistically. Don't focus on cost savings. Revenue increase is also a big part. And within the restaurant industry, I've said this publicly many times, I think by end of the decade, you'll have more billionaires on stage because they've crushed it, right? But they're gonna master technology. They're gonna use that technology to drive revenues, top line, net profits that are gonna get bought out for multi-billion dollars because they figured out what everybody else has missed. And actually, touch base on menu optimization. I think you guys, you touch base a little bit on pricing, but everybody's a little bit afraid of that pricing thing. But run us through the menu optimization. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, with Dave specifically, when I first joined, with James's help, we went through a whole process of trying to figure out what the right food cost for the brand was. And in my mind, I always target 55% prime cost, so food, paper, labor, 55% max. And there's, especially in a franchise business, perhaps in a company operated model, you can be as much as 60 or a little better. But in a franchise model, you have to leave enough room for the royalty and the marketing fund, so that the franchisee is still walking away with 15 to 20% in theory. And we were way off of that at the beginning. And that was a function of pricing, but also portioning. The guys, the founders that were doing their job in the parking lot were just loading up these orders with fries. But when you would go into a restaurant, a lot of people were throwing away at least half the fries. And so there was a real opportunity to reduce the portioning on the fries and still be very generous and still have a really good value, but to reduce some of the costs. Same thing with the sauce that we were making, the Dave sauce. It was like a 2-ounce portion, but you don't use a full 2 ounces. And so we adjusted some of the portioning. We did some stuff around the oil. It's very standard in restaurants, but to have an oil management program so that you get a little bit more life out of the oil by filtering it frequently, using filter powders and filter papers. The founders who were not restaurant guys, they sort of didn't know that. They just threw away the oil every day or every other day, and that was just their process. And so we did a lot of that type of thing around the menu, and then really a big focus on drinks. Our meals don't come with drinks, but we want to sell as many drinks as possible because that helps cost average out the food costs down, and we've seen a lot of growth on the drink side.
You'll laugh. We have a slightly different approach. So both at Salad House and at the burger concept, we think, okay, if I ate something that made me feel too full, what's 2 less bites? Right? So like our portioning starts with the mentality of we want you to feel full but not over full. Yeah. And we want you like 20 minutes later to be like, you know what, actually I feel good. Yeah. Right? And so portioning actually starts with a concept of how we want you to feel, and then we back what the price of that should be based on margins and concepts. So
reverse engineering always works.
What's the outcome you want, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Focus on the outcome and then go figure out the rest of it on the back end. Maybe you can also touch base on guest feedback. I know you're big into that, but we'll start with you. Where does that play in to both Salad House and Burger Joint?
In almost every restaurant I'm working with, I'm a fractional CMO, by the way, that's why. Guest feedback is probably one of the North Star metrics from the marketing program that we care about. If you can get every single guest on every single order, every single time to give you feedback, like that is the gift. Like that is the gift of figuring out how everything works, right? So I'll give you an example. I get a call from a franchisee at Salad House and they're like, hey, we're having a problem, we're down 10% or something's going on, I need to do. Literally the first thing I do is I open up Ovation, that's the feedback tool we use, like you guys use it too. And I look at the AI summary of the last 30 days. I can in real time know exactly what's happening in that store from a guest feedback perspective because we're asking every single guest, every single time, on every single order, on every single visit. Now we don't get it, right? But there's enough data in there that I know in real time what's happening in the store. I'll then look at that and compare it to 90 days ago. What are the trends? So if I see that there's a lot of complaints about order accuracy and it's not gotten better, I'll go back to them and be like, we're not gonna focus on giving you a higher budget right now. What can we do to fix your order accuracy? If I go in there and I see that the order accuracy is actually going down, I know that they're working on the operations. That gives me the signal as the marketer that we can apply some other marketing, because I don't have to call the operations team and say, we have to fix this. So to me, guest feedback is actually sort of the glue between marketing and operations, because it lets us know what's actually happening and what people are saying. Right? And then I think the key to that, I'd probably talk for an hour about this subject, but like, is if you're getting feedback, you have to reply to the guest. Right? Like if you have a feedback tool and somebody's saying something to you, or even like in a Google review or Yelp review, like if you don't reply, like that's just crappy hospitality, man. Like somebody gave you something, even just a simple thank you. But yeah, we ask every order, every time, every day, and that is literally like the power to how we figure out what is or needs to change.
Got you. And then you guys, when you started, I think you mentioned June of 2020, you started at a 3.9 star rating. Today, your average is 4.7.
4.7. That's not typical, but that was on purpose, aligning with everything Rev just said. The idea of responding to every guest, whether it's a really positive review, whether it's a 5-star or a 1-star, there's a response. Obviously, the lower stars, we want to recover that guest. It's a lot more efficient to keep a guest than to try to create a new one or bring someone else in new. So there's a lot of focus around that for sure. We at Dave's, we use your average star rating as the North Star for the franchisees. Those 85 groups, that's sort of the common denominator, is what is the rating across the system, and we build a system that does that. We also have someone that responds at the corporate level to every single comment, whether it's positive or negative, on Yelp, Google, and Ovation, as well as through the third parties. So, and we have several partners. We use Ovation, like Rev said. We also use Bird Eye for the daily aggregator stuff. I'm seeing all the reviews. There's an email that goes to every franchisee, every restaurant, and every corporate support team member daily, so you know how we did as a brand and how each individual franchise group is doing. There's an Ovation email every single day also, and then we use Loop AI for the platform on the third party, and there's a response tool within that platform also. So that way we're applying to all of the third party orders too. Most of those are very, very positive, so it's not a lot of recovery on the third party as much as it is on the others. So there's a whole system and a whole process around trying to keep those scores up and trying to retain and recover guests that are unhappy.
So
do we have marketers in the room? Who are the marketers? Wow. Okay. We'll have a conversation later.
Would you like a wig, sir?
I don't know if the room knows about the secret of how Google search works for restaurants. I could talk for this for an hour. I'm going to give like 2 minutes, okay? Every single search query that is relevant for a restaurant, like best wings near me, best chicken, best salad, whatever, okay? Google and all the other sites are using 3 factors and 3 factors only to determine that answer, okay? Distance, relevance, and prominence, right? So if I do best hot chicken near me, the relevant portion of that is I want hot chicken. So if you aren't managing your menu on Google to say we have hot chicken, how does Google know you have it? Okay, that's easy. Distance is, so I said near me, but I could say best chicken in Orlando or whatever. As long as you're managing your physical address and all the listings, you win that. The secret though, the secret sauce in that is what Google calls prominence, okay? And what Google is saying is that they are judging your business against other businesses that should also come up relevant for that search. So if I do best hot chicken near me and I'm near a Hattie B's and a Dave's, right? How Google is going to decide which one of those restaurants should come up on top is what I call it's review velocity. So it's not your overall average rating. It's not the average rating of the restaurant, which is an important metric, but it is the recency and the amount of 5-star reviews you're getting versus the other restaurants that are relevant for that search. Okay, here's the best way I can explain that. I'm staying in the middle of the street. There's a pizza place on the left. There's a pizza place on the right. They're exactly the same. Cheese, pepperoni, mushroom, supreme, garlic nuts, hot wings, right? And they're both doing listings management and blah, 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 blah. And I go, best pizza near me. My phone knows exactly where I am. Everything else is the same. Which one's going to come up on top? Whichever of those two has the most amount of 5-star reviews recently. is likely to be the one. So not only is guest feedback important for understanding the business, but that's like the secret sauce to reducing your Google CPC budget. You get a lot more 5-star reviews, you don't have to spend as much on search. Does that make sense?
And by the way, it makes sense because Google is trying to improve the experience on their users, right? So
Yep.
they don't want to recommend crappy options all the time because then people stop using it and go to Apple Maps or somewhere else.
Besides all of what they just said and all of the benefit of Google, when was the last time you saw a 3.5 and said, I'm eating
That's
there?
where I'm going. Yeah.
That's my choice. It's never, it's always, it's got to be minimum 4, and the higher the better. I mean, that's how I pick hotels when I'm picking on Bonvoy. If there's a 4.2 or the 4.5, I'm picking 4.5 all day long because there's got to be something there, in my opinion.
Unless it has less number of reviews.
Well, maybe, that's true. But usually they have a lot either way. And also if they have a good bathtub. That's another.
I look at what the coffee
That's another
option
qualifier.
is. I look at what the coffee
I don't
option
care
is,
about that.
'cause I hate
That's
Starbucks.
James's problem. That's not my problem. I just.
And by the way, I learned 5 key metrics that has changed the way I do things. 5 M's. So number 1 is the metrics. Always be measuring metrics. Like even internally, that's what I'm solving today now for my own business. If the metrics is not there, stop. Nothing else matters. Then the next thing is going to be your model. Is your model broken? Are you doing the right things? Then it's the market. Is the market up or down? And how do you compare to that? Next is money. Did I invest enough money in there? Does the money factor play in or not? And then lastly, it's manpower. It's a who problem, not a how problem. I know how to do it, I just don't have the right person to do that. So that's what I'm doing day in, day out, and learned that from Alex Hormozy, and that has changed the way we do things. We literally, every problem, we just go right through the 5 M's and figure out where we're stuck, and we stop, and we don't do anything else until we solve that. So we'll touch base a little bit on guest retention. Reb, we'll start with you. Give everybody a tactical advice on how to master retention, because 70% of the customers that walk in your restaurant are probably not coming back. So what do we do to change that? How do we fix that problem?
Thank you for asking. As a marketer, the golden metric I care about is CRM growth. How much of my guest data am I capturing, or what's the percentage of guest data I'm capturing? Because if I have your email address, or I have your phone number, or you're in my rewards program, my ability to get you back increases by some percentage I don't know the actual number of, but it works, right? And so I'll give you an example. At Salad House, we ran a query using Bicky. We use Bicky. And I was like, okay, show me the LTV of all guests whose first purchase happened from January 2024 to now. Okay, and the LTV of those guests was $36, which for us is a trip and a half. Go to Salad House, that's $22, $23 with delivery fees and blah, blah, blah. I then ran the same query and I said, all right, show me the LTV of all guests who are in my rewards program, who I have an email for. Again, first purchase 2024 to recent, it was $250. So the difference of I know who you are versus I don't know who you are is $214. Right? When I had that metric, I could then go to all the franchisees and I'd be like, there is nothing more important outside of great service than getting somebody in the rewards program. Here's how you make $214 more per guest. That knowledge was a game changer for us. And so answering the question for me is, did I get the guest information or not? Because once I have it, there's a lot I can do with it. And I'm not a proponent, I'm a naysayer on this. I get argued with all the time. I believe that if you start the guest acquisition journey at rewards, you made a mistake.
Agreed.
Like if it's join our loyalty program, join our loyalty program, join our loyalty program, like, yo, bro, I ain't even eaten there yet. Like, I don't even know what that tastes like. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe I had a crappy experience. Also, who here wants to add another app to their phone? Oh, nobody's hands went up, okay? If you capture somebody's email address, you could get them to rewards later. You could get them into feedback later. So for me, the golden metric is CRM growth.
And I'll take a completely different approach. I'll say loyalty is completely dead. Your best case is 20, 30, maybe. I just spoke to a 26-unit brand. They said they have a 40% of their guests is on loyalty. But if you can go after 100% of your guests, why settle for 40? Like I always tell restaurateurs, I'm like, look, out of every single customer, or out of 100 customers that walk through the door, you don't kick out 60 of them, and you don't have somebody at the door say, are you a loyalty member? Nope, leave please. Why do you do that digitally? So forget loyalty, just focus on capturing data and open a line of communication. We're a tech company. Our bread and butter is outbound marketing. We reach out to a lot of people, talk to them, try to generate sales. That mentality has got to shift into the restaurant space, and those who master it will crush it. Don't be afraid to communicate with people. When they leave, an hour later, we automatically send a text message, how was everything? If you don't open that line of communication and something was missing or the food was cold or it just wasn't there, guess where I'm gonna go? I don't have a choice. I'm not gonna try to chase you and give you that info. I'll just leave a 1-star review, hoping that somebody from your corporate office will reach out to me, right? So save yourself that headache and treat everybody like VIP and start that communication from day one. Get a phone number, get an email. Don't push the loyalty stuff and just focus on serving the guests. Everything else will fall in line. Anything you'd like to add?
I would just add that I think I go back to Armand, who I mentioned a couple of times already, but when I very first started with Dave's, I got really quickly into trying to set up an app and trying to get Punch into the process and trying to do a whole loyalty thing. And he got really angry. He goes, does In-N-Out have a loyalty program? Does In-N-Out have an app? And I was like, I don't know. Do they? And he's like, they don't. And he said, the best loyalty program we have is good chicken or good food. And I think that was really, really wise, because it has been very true for us that when restaurants aren't focused on the quality of the food, when they focus more on the speed of service, they start to see sales dwindle. They start to see comments about quality go up, and they start to see impact to guest retention or guests returning. And so we put a really heavy emphasis on the quality of the food. I talk about the star rating as sort of the North Star, but right below that, the quality rating is the next big piece. And all the other things like, the cleanliness, even the service, although I would say it's number 2, but even like the service, like the hospitality, I think it's still almost, I hate to say it out loud because I think people are gonna judge me, but I think it's a distant number 2. The quality of the product is the preeminent number 1 driver of return visits. And that's you can look at an In-N-Out as an example if you guys are familiar with In-N-Out. It's really long wait times, but they're perceived to be really high quality, and they've built this business that's super sustainable over a long period of time. If you look at your iPhone as an example, people are willing to wait in line. They're willing to wait 2 years. They're willing to pay $2,000 for this product they think is super high quality. If iPhone had a run where they were all failing and they would damage their business so badly because people have put all this time, effort, energy, and money into getting one. And so for us, our iPhone is the chicken. And so as long as the chicken's really good, then people will come back and they'll forgive us on the speed of service. They'll forgive us on the hospitality if that wasn't strong. And again, all those are important pieces. I'm not trying to discount them, but I'm just trying to say, like, in the balance of things, the quality of the food is the number 1 driver of return visits.
I agree. They're going to remember the taste of food and if it was cold, etc. versus, I waited an extra 60 seconds in line.
I'm going to double click then on CRM growth, because there's lots of places with good food. And so if my service is good and my food is good and so is somebody else's, I need to stay top of mind.
Sure.
Right?
Agreed. Outbound marketing. And by the way, like acquisition, we all know it's expensive, regardless of what business you're in, whether you're a restaurant or a tech company. Retention is where everything changes. Personally, for us, our average retention right now is like 7.8 years. 7.8 years. Like, we keep customers. We do not lose customers. We just don't. And that's what has allowed us to be where we are today, because we mastered the retention strategy. We go well above and beyond to ensure that the customers are happy, that they don't leave, because we know how expensive it is to acquire a new customer. So when you guys are looking at acquisition channels, I think John Taffer said this 7 years ago on Gary Vee's podcast, nobody's still executing it. And that is, you gotta market to 4 visits. Not because they become a loyalty member on the 4th visit, but you make your most amount of profit on that 4th visit and you build behavior. If they come in 4 times, then that becomes part of their circle. Back to Rev's point that you gotta stay on top of mind. Like, if they're first-time visitors, like we do a first-time visitor campaign. Buy 1, get 1 free on the next visit. The strongest offer out there. Why? Because 70% aren't gonna come back anyway. The chain that I said, they'll give you $3 off for 30 days. when it's your first time, right? You got to get them to come back in, and you got to have them build that behavior so you become part of their habit. All right, well, that is it. Any questions? We're just a little bit over time, but.
I have a quick question. You guys both mentioned the importance of responding to both positive and negative reviews. Sounds like you have 8 tools to do it. Are they all AI responses?
No, we use AI as sort of the builder of the response, and then we have real people that then tailor it. AI comes out sounding very corporate, and we try to avoid the corporate sounding thing altogether. But we actually have a team of 4 people that are responding now. Originally it was just the one. Originally it was just me, and then I hired somebody, and then it's become a much bigger thing for us. We actually charge our franchisees a fee for doing it. It's $25 a week. That is part of the weekly scrape. If you multiply that out, it's really inexpensive because we get a lot of guest responses. And if they were doing it themselves, they wouldn't be responding. And so we built a whole thing around trying to do that. That's how we've gone from that 3.8 or 3.9 to a 4.7. Yeah.
Do you make the franchisees opt into that program? Or
Yes, it's compelled.
They
yeah.
have to,
They
yeah.
have to. Yeah.
We do very similar thing. More important than any of that is the speed of the response, right? The guest expectation is that you will respond within 6 days. So if you beat that by any amount of time, you win. My expectation as a guest is that you will reply to me less than a week. So if you reply in an hour or a day, you exceeded
24
my
hours.
expectation.
Yeah.
And I think it's something like 70% of restaurants don't reply at all.
At all,
So
right.
if you reply at least to every guest within 5 days, you've blown the guest expectations and the industry standard.
I think we're at 23 hours as our average response time, which I think is pretty good. I would like it to be faster, to be honest with you, but I think it's pretty strong. The weekends are where it kind of goes up a little bit for us on the overall average, but I have had the opportunity to be a franchisee of Dave's also, so we just opened our 4th location. When we opened the first location, our guest response team was responding to every guest, and I wanted to respond also. And so I was going on Yelp and responding myself, hey, I'm the owner, da, 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 da. And that lasted maybe 72 hours because it was just too much. It really was. It was just terrible. And then especially when you're doing it by yourself through Yelp or whatever, you have to go into every single response. There's not like a system above it. Anyway, I think it's really a good thing to have a setup system, a corporate system that responds for you.
Out of the audience, who thinks that adding an additional 100,000 a year in revenue would be beneficial to their brand?
Of course.
Anybody? All right, we got a strong offer for you. Learning. We guarantee 100,000 in sales through our platform within the first 12 months, or we'll give you your money back.
Ooh.
So if you're interested, just scan the QR code on the screen.
Or you get
and
a free
then,
wig.
Or you get a free wig.
Do you want a wig?
You can scan the QR code and fill out the form. We're also at the booth downstairs if you guys want to stop by and talk.
I've got one left. Anybody want a wig?
We got 2 left.
Oh, he's got 2 left. There you go.
Boom.
That's the Hamed wig.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.